Hello, my fellow gamers. Gamerdude back once again, and today we are talking about the downfall of Marvel's Avengers. But in order to do that, we first had to revisit the game and play through the main campaign and etc. etc. So, anyway, before we begin, you all know the routine, or at least I hope you do by now. If you aren't new to the channel, please make sure you smash that like button and drop me a subscribe because it would just be your good deed of the day. Same applies if you are a returning viewer. I decided after rewatching the entire MCU that I wasn't quite finished with superheroes just yet. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to replay Marvel's Avengers. And, you know, for all its flaws, I actually quite enjoyed the campaign. The endgame content we'll get to in a completely different section of this video, but as for the campaign, I really enjoyed it. So in this video, I'm just going to be, discussing the positives of the game, the drawbacks of the game, what went wrong in general, why it failed, and just why they decided to give up on it. So, as you may or may not know, Crystal Dynamics decided to pull the plug on Marvel's Avengers in 2022. And no one was sad to see it go, to be quite honest. And once again, as we get through this video, I'm going to discuss why they decided to pull the plug and why everybody hated it. But for right now, I just want to say that it really was the end of one era and the start of a whole different era, which again we'll get into. But basically, it was the start of all the crappy live service games that followed it. You know, Crystal Dynamics were one of the first to capitalize on this whole live service thing, and they decided to do it because they saw how well Shite Night was doing. Yes, I call Fortnite Shite Night. I shall forever call it Shite Night. Don't hate me. It's how I feel about the game. It is shite. But anyway, Crystal Dynamics, like most other developers that followed, saw how profitable Shite Night was, and they decided that we want that. Let's do that. And they've all failed. None of them survived. They've all been shut down. I mean, even Suicide Squad, which came out earlier this year, is shutting down in January. So that's less than a year it's taken them to shut that game down. And it's like, wow, how much money was spent on this game and now you're shutting it down? Wow. You must have known that people were going to hate that game. Before I make this intro any longer, let's get right into the video. So first of all, I want to go into the positives of this game. That's starting with the character lineup. Now, of course, Marvel's Avengers was supposed to have a bunch of characters. You know, people data mined a number of characters that were to be released, and sadly, because the game was cancelled, they ended up leaving the last character as the Winter Soldier. Bit of a letdown, but, moving on. The characters themselves, fantastic. All the suits that come with them, and we'll get into that in a little bit as well. But the characters in general, great. Spider-Man as well. I enjoyed when they added Spider-Man, not going to lie. At first, he was a PlayStation exclusive, and then they were like, well, the game's shutting down, so we'll give him to Xbox as well. Nice of Sony to do that, considering Sony is very tight when it comes to Spider-Man. They won't even let Marvel use a picture of him in a movie without wanting more moolah for it. So it was very nice of them to do that. But yeah, anyway, we got Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, fantastic, great. And, she got her own MCU series, so when that started, she got the MCU costume in the game. Spider-Man, when he was added, he had all of his MCU suits put into the game as well. Iron Man, all MCU suits, Thor, even Lady Thor. She was a later addition to the game, but she got her Love and Thunder costume, which is just an awesome costume. I mean, I think I'm wearing it. Yeah, that is an awesome costume. I love that costume, not gonna lie. Captain America, he got all his MCU suits: Black Widow, Black Panther, Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, and even Kate Bishop got her outfit from the Hawkeye series, which they didn't have to do because it wasn't really a costume; it was just a jumpsuit, really. But yeah, it works. It looks good. I like it. Now, speaking of the costumes in general, if I click on Spider-Man, for example, look at all these comic book costumes. I mean, wow. We have more costumes for Spidey in this game. And bear in mind, this game is now delisted. You can't buy it on digital storefronts. It has more costumes than Marvel's Spider-Man 2, a big AAA open world Spider-Man game by Insomniac. I mean, I would have thought that Insomniac would have at least added the suit that Crystal Dynamics made for their Spider-Man, this one. And they didn't. And this is a pretty awesome suit. It looks pretty damn good. It's like a mixture of Andrew Garfield's, Tom Holland's, and Tobey Maguire's, like all in one. And I think it looks pretty dope. It looks pretty damn good. But yeah, all these different suits for Spider-Man, and they're fantastic. I absolutely adore them. And then, of course, you've got the suits for Iron Man and Thor and Black Panther. One can only hope that when the Black Panther video game comes out, we get some suit variations like these. Because, again, there's just so many. Including the MCU suits. I mean, sadly, Chadwick Boseman passed away, so we only saw two of his costumes on screen. But still, the fact that they added them is just a credit to how far Crystal Dynamics were willing to go for this game. It's just so sad the things they did with it, and obviously I'm going to get into detail on that later in the video, but it is really sad the route they chose to go with this game, because it could have had so much potential. I mean, and I'm only talking about the suits at the moment, Each character has a unique variation of suits, and they all look absolutely beautiful. I mean, the level of detail that went into these suits is magnificent. And I'm not even onto my other positives yet. This is just my first positive for this game. Granted, it's probably the best positive for the game. That's why I'm starting with it. But still, it's a positive, because there's just so many variations. I mean, Thor hasn't really had his own video games. He had those movie tie-in ones, but I think he only had one actually. And he didn't get any suit variations. You were locked into the suit that he was wearing in the first Thor movie. And that kind of sucked, especially considering, you couldn't really do anything in that Thor game. You couldn't fly around wherever you wanted and do whatever you wanted. You were set to a specific hub world where you could just move forward. You couldn't go back, you couldn't go left or right, you had to just go forward. So that kind of sucked. Whereas in this game, playing as Thor, you had a bit of freedom. You could fly about. Yes, it was a little hub world, but you could still fly about. You could explore a little bit as Thor, and that was kind of fun. And I think as well, the attention to detail, especially on Mjolnir, because that's the movie version of the hammer, and that's the game version of the hammer. They literally added a separate piece of code to change the look of the hammer. And I really do think that is incredible attention to detail. It just works so well. And I love it. I love it. I mean, even the Hulk has a massive outfit selection. And the Hulk has had a few games over the years, but he's never had like a massive selection of costumes. We had the Eric Bana movie tie-in game for the Hulk, and you could play as Grey Hulk, but that was it. We had Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. You were stuck looking like the Hulk that game came with. We had the Incredible Hulk game based on Edward Norton's movie. And again, you were just stuck to how the Hulk looked in that movie. You couldn't really play about with him and change his outfit whenever you felt like it. Because, I love watching Hulk. I love seeing Hulk in a pinstripe suit. Joe Fix It. It looks awesome. Plus, fedoras are cool. And then you've got, Captain America as well. Captain America had his own game. Again, that was based upon the Captain America movie. But you didn't have these suit variations again. You couldn't alter your suit. And I think that was a real shame, just in general, because it was a missed opportunity for them to add a bit of extra pizzazz to the game, let's say. But there's so many different variations on the suits, and it is fantastic. But yeah, moving on from that, because I could just talk about the suits in this game for days, because they are absolutely fantastic. I do want to briefly talk about everything else the characters come with. Example, the nameplates and the emotes. Of course, because this is an online game, each character had their unique emotes, and they're all pretty damn good. Some of them are quite funny. And I really did, when I was playing it with randoms, I really did love showing off ones that I'm not going to lie, I paid real money on this game. I'm ashamed of it now, but yes, I really did love showing off ones that I paid real money for that other people didn't have. So yeah, that felt good at the time, but now it's just like, oh, why did I spend money on this game? I mean, it's not like I spent hundreds of pounds on it. No, I bought one pack. That was it. So 20 quid tops. But still, I feel ashamed of spending that money on a game that inevitably failed. And again, we're going to be talking about that. But each character also has its own unique nameplate, and there's a bunch of random ones too. I mean, just going through them all, it would take a while. I mean, there's a bunch here that I've not seen before because I haven't played the game in so long. And when Crystal Dynamics shut down the marketplace, everything on the marketplace that people hadn't purchased with real money got added into the game's inventory. So it's like I haven't seen a lot of these, so I'm going to have to go through some of these because some of them do look pretty awesome. And it's just an interesting little detail, It's something they didn't have to do. They could have just stuck you with a random Captain America nameplate and left you with that. So they could have just left you with that and said, right, that's it. That's all you're getting. You're not allowed to change it. That's it. They even added specific ones for when Crystal Dynamics released Guardians of the Galaxy, which kind of gave players of Avengers at the time the inclination that, oh, maybe they're going to add Guardians of the Galaxy at some point in the future. Because when that game came out, there was no inclination that Marvel's Avengers was coming to an end. There was no signs that Crystal Dynamics were going to shut it down. And it is sad, actually, because Guardians of the Galaxy was a very, very good game. And it's because of Marvel's Avengers' failure that we are never, ever going to see a sequel to that game. And that is a crying shame. That's a huge shame. Now, I want to as well discuss briefly the gear. I'll come back to that in a different topic later in the video, but for right now, the gear. Now, some people love it, some people hate it, some people called it a looter shooter because of the gear, and it did have that looter shooter formula. But the gear was actually rather helpful. Each region you went into with any character, the enemies had different modifiers. So, like, in the snowy tundra area, they had freeze weapons. So you could adjust your loadout accordingly to deal more damage. But in doing that, it would make your character sometimes worse or sometimes better, depending on how you set the loadout. And I think it was an interesting thing to add in, because a lot of other service games and looter shooters don't do that. You just pick up the gear and it's got all these different perks, and it doesn't really say, oh, this is effective against blah, blah, this is effective against blah, blah. It's just like, this does this does that, done. And yeah, finally, on this positive, I want to talk about the takedowns. Each character had their own unique takedown animations. And some of these are pretty damn awesome as well. You know, a lot of effort went into these takedown moves. Granted, most of the time they were glitchy and you couldn't see what was happening because, you know, the takedown ended up clipping with thin air, and the enemy that you hit the takedown on ended up over there, and you were just doing it to thin air. But still, these takedown animations were pretty damn dope. And I must admit, in that money that I spent on the game, I think I did buy a couple of the takedown animations. Again, completely regret because it all ended up free. But I do think if this game had become free to play instead of being completely shut down, it would have done so much better. You know, if they made the game free to play and just added in a few bits here and there, that's like, right, okay, it's free to play, you get all this for free, but can you pay for this? I'd have been okay with that. You know, I'd have been completely okay with that. But yeah, these are just Captain America's takedowns. I'm not going to show them all because we'll be here all day. But again, each character had their own unique takedown animations, and all of them were super dope. You know, a lot of time and effort went into making these, and it's clear that they either got real life fight choreographers in to do these, or they just downright ripped them from WWE because a lot of them later down the line did kind of look like wrestling moves. So yeah, moving on, I'm now going to show you some gameplay. Okay, so this is relatively early into the game. I got all the boring tutorial stuff out of the way. And already, I know I wanted to discuss the positives first, but I've got to get this out of the way. Already, I was having a massive issue that really pissed me off. The game's camera is extremely broken, and you will see that many times throughout this video. I mean, it is ridiculous how broken the camera is in this game. I mean, at one point as well, the game actually grey screened on me and force closed, so I had to start up the video again and record. And it did that too many times to count. So yeah, now that's out of the way. Quiz or points. See if you could guess the point in the video where it force closed the game. Yeah. If you can guess the point in the video where it force closed the game, I mean, I can't give you anything because I'm not a big time YouTuber. So just, you know, points, I guess. So yeah, go for it. So anyway, into the actual gameplay, the graphics sound. This is the PS5 version that I'm playing, and the graphics were pretty damn good. You know, it was a bit clunky on the PS4 version, but on the PS5 version they refined it a little bit more, and the graphics did look pretty good. You know, I was happy with how it looked overall, and the game itself, in terms of an actual game, it's definitely well worth playing. Especially the story content, you know. If you're not interested in all the online stuff, don't worry. You're not actually forced to do that. There's that camera problem. But yeah, you're not actually forced to do any of the live service stuff. You know, it doesn't force you to go into it. You know, you can play the story mode solo, which is great. And to be honest, that is this game's defining feature. A lot of people hate it. You know, some people have a love-hate relationship with the whole story mode in this game and the game in general, and there's the camera problem again. But yeah, it's going back to the positives I was talking about earlier. You know, the suits. Obviously, I've gone into great detail on the suits. The suits are fabulous. You know, I love the suits. They're fantastic. Then you've got the takedowns. You've got all the unique gear, unique to each character. I did have a bit of an issue with the gear. You know, I was thinking, well, it's a gear-based game, so shouldn't the gear actually affect your appearance on how you look as a character? But I suppose, you know, that they took that out because they added in all the extra suits. And, you know, some people did have a big issue with that. You know, they were like, well, it's a gear-based game, and it's not changing your appearance. but then they just didn't take into account all of the suits that were going to be added into the game as it progressed. I do think it's a bit of a letdown in terms of just general playability, because if you're playing it now, nobody's working on the game anymore. That's it. So if the game has problems, that's it. They are stuck there. It's never going to get fixed. It's never going to get patched. Like the camera issues I've been talking about, they are persistent. They will never be fixed. They are always going to be there. At first, I thought it might have been stick drift on my controller, but I changed controllers and it still persisted. So it was the game, not my controller. I keep coming back to that controller issue and camera problem. Is that going to be a thing? Am I just going to be doing that every time now? Oh, vey. I wanted to try and make this game seem positive. I wanted to like find out why they cancelled it, not give all the reasons why they cancelled it. It just seems like I'm doing the opposite. Anyway, back to the game's positives. Now, as you can see, I'm on one of the main story missions here. It's an early one. It's before Kamala gets all the Avengers back together. We're going to meet Tony Stark. And the fact that Tony Stark is voiced by Nolan North, I don't want to say it's a good thing, but I also don't want to say it's a bad thing, because Troy Baker's in it as well. And the two of them together just makes any game worth seeing or playing. If it's not your kind of game, just watch it like a film for the sake of Nolan North and Troy Baker. But I kind of do feel like this may have not destroyed their reputations, but damaged them. Because of the way the game ended up and how it ended and its general view and, how it turned out for the public, I think Nolan North and Troy Baker might regret doing it. They might just see it as like just a paycheck to them. I mean, even later on in the DLCs, when they got the new voice actors in for new characters, they had Christopher Judge come in. The voice of freaking Kratos from God of War voices Black Panther in this game. And honestly, I thought that was absolutely dope. I really thought bringing in a big name like that was going to keep it going. But I think at that point, it was already failing and dwindling. I think at that point, the amount of players on Steam were down to a dwindling capacity. Hardly anyone came back for the DLC. And that was the beginning of the end for the game. But yeah, these two together on screen, the chemistry they have, it just makes scenes like this throughout the story so much better. I just absolutely love these two in a game. Whether it's both of them or just one of them. And the fact that they were both together in this, it's like, oh my God, come on. You're playing two of my favorite Marvel superheroes. Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and Tony Stark's Iron Man are up there in my top 5 heroes. So yeah, there's that. So I'm still going to keep discussing some positives, but I do want to move on to some drawbacks. Now, as well as the glitching camera that you've witnessed, there are a bunch of problems with the cutscenes in general. And they've been there since the PS4 version. They've been there since day one. They were never fixed. And now they're never going to be fixed, which is a damn shame. But anyway, in some cutscenes, the environments don't render, and it's like you're talking on essentially what looks like a green screen, a pre-green screen. It's just the screen and there's nothing there. It kind of looks like you're doing that. It sometimes takes a while for it to render in, like the post-production isn't quite finished. You've got certain glitches where characters are clipping through walls. You've got certain glitches where the audio doesn't work, where you're trying to listen to the cutscene and even the subtitles aren't working, and it's just the mouth's moving. They're supposed to be talking, but there's nothing there, so you have to skip it. I came across that problem a few times in this particular playthrough. I'm going to be honest, I didn't complete the game. I played it for a little bit after this gameplay finishes, and I got to the point, if you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. I got to the point where Tony Stark goes to space and finds Captain America. I got there and then just gave up. And it's not because I didn't want to replay it. It was just because there were so many bugs left over. You know, at least when they shut down the game, they could have gone back in one last time and fixed everything. Everything that needed fixing, they could have fixed and left it at that. You know, being like, well, if it's going to be delisted and shut down, at least we can give players that bought it a decent playing experience that they'll actually want to go back and play. You know, because when this game first came out, I was super hyped for it. I'm not going to lie. And I played it for days and days and days. Not going to lie. I did all of the missions several times over. Not going to lie. And I think the PlayStation app says I've done about 596 hours on the PS5 version. So I hate to think how many hours I played the PS4 version. It's kind of, yeah, shameful now that I look back on it because the game failed. Anyway, I also do want to discuss the new Marvel games coming out because credit where credit's due. Without games like Marvel's Avengers and Insomniac Spider-Man, we wouldn't have any of the inspirations that called for these newer solo separate games. Like Crystal Dynamics did Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, granted, that was miles better than Marvel's Avengers because they ditched the whole online live service battle pass crap. It was just a solo story, which was fantastic. And because Marvel's Avengers failed, so did Guardians of the Galaxy. Everyone lost faith in them for that, and it failed. And we'll never see a sequel. But yeah, then you've got games that are coming out now in the next few years. You've got Black Panther. We have an Iron Man game coming out, standalone games, mind you, by the way. These are separate from the MCU. These are their own stories, their own takes on the characters. Nothing to do with the MCU. We have a Blade game, which I'm pretty sure is going to be an Xbox exclusive. I'm not entirely sure on that. Do let me know in the comments below if you know if that's going to be an Xbox exclusive or not. We also have a bunch of Marvel indie games and like Battle Pass Royale ones, like Marvel Rivals, for example. To me, that is just Shite Night with a Marvel skin on it. I don't care. Any game like that I'm just going to compare to Shite Night. And yes, I call Fortnite Shite Night. It will forever be Shite Night. Don't care. Hate me all you want. Fortnite is shite. Moving on, or I'll just make this a video about Shite Night. So out of everything, you do actually have to admire what they did with Marvel's Avengers. I mean, it was a bold choice to go with Kamala Khan as the main character, because you got to think about it this way: not many people, especially newer fans of Marvel, not many people knew who she was. I mean, it wasn't until these newer fans were introduced to her in the MCU in her series Miss Marvel that people really got to know who she was. Well, the newer fans, I mean, anyway. Anyone that knew her as a character were just like, what? You going with Miss Marvel for this? Are you crazy? But as bold as the choice was, I really freaking enjoyed her character. Her moveset, her powers, they were absolutely fantastic. And of course, she had some kick-ass comic book accurate suits. And when you move into it, as you're progressing through, you don't just play as Miss Marvel. You unlock each Avenger as you progress through the story. So when you meet Hulk, Bruce Banner, you can choose between playing as Kamala or Hulk, and then vice versa. When you meet Iron Man and the rest of them, you can choose which one you want to play as and level them up accordingly. And I did kind of like that. Now, coming back to the Battle Pass and the live service stuff, I think the major letdown for that was all of the lackluster content and broken promises. You know, not only did we have to wait months and months and months for a new character or just a new mission or new content, it wasn't really what they promised. Because I specifically remember when Black Panther was first teased, they did say we would have a Wakanda to explore. They did say we'd be able to explore Wakanda. And automatically, everybody assumed that that meant there'd be a new save area, you know, a new safe area, basically, where similar to the helicarrier, where you could just run around and check the place out. But it was severely limited, and we just ended up with a tiny piece of the palace looking over Wakanda. The little bits of Wakanda that you could explore were in this little hub world, and they were all just copy and paste. You know, they were all just copied and pasted. The jungles all looked identical. All the areas you went to were identical and copy and pasted. And it's the same with most of the other missions you go to, actually. You know, pretty much all of the missions on the eastern seaboard, so New York area, it's all in the same damn place. It's all in the same area of that one tiny bit of New York. And it's like, couldn't you have done this bit over there? Or couldn't this bit have been in Central Park? You know, does it have to be in exactly the same spot over and over again? And then when you're done with that, you move into another hub area on the same mission, underground. And that same area is copied and pasted so many times. I mean, wow. I was so sick of seeing that part of the game over and over again. You know, because when I went on to do a new mission, I expected a new mission, a new area. And I just ended up looking at it being like, wait, have I just done this one? The only way I actually knew it was any different was like the opening, because if you jump in the snowy tundra, it jumps you outside, and obviously it's snowing. But if you go to, say, like the Utah Badlands or something, the only way you know it's different is when you come out of the Quinjet. But if you spawn in the Utah Badlands underground, you think to yourself, well, I've done this. I just did this one. It's the same map. It's just copied and pasted from the last one, and there's that camera glitching again. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I'm going to keep doing that. But yeah, as I mentioned at the start of the video, the character lineup for this, you know, credit where credit was due. You know, it was a bold character lineup. Obviously, you've got the standard Avengers, but I think what was mostly disappointing was the fact that Captain Marvel was incredibly and heavily teased for this game, and she just never arrived. And did you just see that? That was just rude. You know, I'm just flying there, minding my own business. I get hit by a beam, and then I end up falling off the edge of a cliff. Yeah, that happens a lot in this game too. You know, do not hover if you're playing as Iron Man. Do not hover. Does not work. Do not hover. But yeah, anyway, the character lineup, it was great. It was bold right from the get-go, as I said, with Kamala. You got the box standard Avengers, and once again, it was heavily teased and implied that Captain Marvel was going to show up. In the opening cutscene, Captain America comes up to Kamala and he says, Captain Marvel fan, oh, well, she's off planet at the moment. Then you've got multiple posters and pictures and references strewn all around Kamala's base and room in the helicarrier, suggesting that she might actually be getting added to the game. And she wasn't. We saw nothing. So yeah, there's that. I know a couple of the data mined characters. There was She-Hulk, War Machine. I believe Doctor Strange was teased, but he wasn't actually in the data mined characters. I believe there was another multiverse character. I think the leak that came out, it said multiverse character, and it was just that multiverse character. It was unnamed, so we don't know who that was. But the game did dive into the multiverse, so that makes a ton of sense. And am I the only one that's like fatigued by the multiverse right now? I mean, I do love a good multiverse story, but everything is doing it now, and it's just too much. It's just too much. But yeah, when you've got things in a game like this, like a battle pass or just live service in general, it leaves something to be desired because you end up with lackluster content. And that's not to say that the end game content was bad, because some of it was all right. It was just mostly bad. Yeah, I'm not really backing myself up there, am I? I'm not really giving it any extra points by saying that. Rewind. But yeah, as long as you enjoy the story for this game, that's your choice. That's your prerogative. Like me, I can play the story on this as many times as I want, and I'll still enjoy it. It's just the end game content I won't enjoy, and it is a real shame that they went the direction that they did with it, because it could have been so much more. It could have been so much better. It had so much potential, and they just ruined it. They just wasted it, because every time there was a new update, they just kept promoting that battle pass, and then every time there was a new update, I suppose at least the new update didn't say after it dropped, it didn't say coming soon or coming in season 2. It was just like, okay, so you've dropped it all at once, and now we've got to wait like half a year or a full year for the next bit of content. That was the downfall for it. That was the lackluster content I'm trying to describe. Because when you get a game like this, I'm not expecting content every other week or every other month. It would just be nice for a set schedule, and for them to keep to it. Because while yes, the game did have a roadmap, it wasn't a very accurate or reliable roadmap, was it? Because it always had things on it that never actually arrived. And I think Crystal Dynamics realized that quite quickly, because whenever something was on the roadmap and it wasn't added into the game, they just extended an already existing event in the game, or just added in an event that had already been done, and players caught onto that rather quickly. It wasn't subtle at all. It just really wasn't that subtle. They really did try to hide it. So I think if they'd have paid more attention to the fans and done what they promised with the game, it might have lasted longer. It might not have died a very slow and painful death. And now that the game's completely finished, it's delisted and everything, nobody's working on it. I know I've talked about this in the video already, but there are a bunch of bugs left over. I mean, just that camera was just one of them. After I stopped recording, I came across so many more. There were just so many. At one point, I think Tony Stark's head was in the floor. His body had disappeared and his head was in the floor. And I think when I finished one of the missions, there was a duplicate Tony Stark. As I was playing as Tony Stark, and there was a duplicate Tony Stark standing at the war table, and he could actually talk to himself. I think Tony Stark's ego is big enough without him talking to himself. Don't you? But yeah, it's. I mentioned this as well. It's not just the cutscenes and general outside of gameplay. It's the gameplay in general, because in the actual missions, you can do takedowns on different enemies, and they don't always work, and they do sometimes actually break the game. The game, after I stopped the recording and started doing all the fancy moves and takedowns and whatnot, the game crashed a bunch of times. Because the takedowns just were not working properly. I would hit someone directly in front of me, right in my eye line with a takedown, and then they'd suddenly teleport over to the right of the screen, and I'm doing a takedown in midair on nothing, and it happened quite a lot after this gameplay. You know, I wish I could have included it, but if I did, then this video would have been about 3 hours long because there was a lot of it. There was just a lot of it. It didn't stop. It really didn't stop. But I'm really not selling this game, am I? Oh wow. You know, I did quite enjoy the game. You know, please don't think that I'm trashing on it entirely. I'm not. I did enjoy it when it first released. I loved it. I played it for hours. I got the Platinum Trophy on the PS4 version and the PS5 version, and I only do that in games that I really particularly enjoy. Now, moving off Avengers for a moment, you got Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I've mentioned this briefly in the video already, but Guardians of the Galaxy was, of course, done by the same people that made Marvel's Avengers. And that's not to say Guardians hadn't been done before. Telltale took a crack at it with their brilliant formula of the episodic games, and that was fantastic. That was a great story. So when I played the Crystal Dynamics version and saw it was like not open world, but it kind of like had that same hub style world that Marvel's Avengers did, I was happy with that, because in the Telltale Games version you didn't get much freedom to move around as the characters. You know, it was always like button bashing or making a choice real quick and then moving to the next area. But in the Crystal Dynamics version, you had that bit of extra freedom, you know, to move around, look around, search for collectibles and whatnot, and that's fun. I enjoy doing that in a game. You know, it shows that you can actually just play a game and enjoy it without having to worry about this massive open world. And you think to yourself, well, is something at the other side of the map? Do I need to go to the other side of the map to do that? Is something right in front of me? Can I do that now? Do I need to come back later? No. With a game like Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, it's simple. You know, you go there, you do it, it's done. There's no having to worry about coming back to it later, unless you miss a collectible, which I did quite a lot in Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy. But yeah, I'm sure everyone's done that. But yeah, anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy, it was another game that I platinumed because I genuinely enjoyed it. And while, yes, I will admit it was 100 times better than Marvel's Avengers because it wasn't online live service battle pass shite, but it did what it needed to do, and it did it right. And I have said this before, and I will say it again, and I do hope people agree with me when I say this. I think all of the superhero stuff should just be left to Insomniac Games, because many other developers have had the opportunity to make superhero games in the past. And until Insomniac's Spider-Man, none of them were any good. I mean, they were okay, you know, they were all right to play, but none of them were really that good. And then you've got Insomniac coming along with Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales and Spider-Man 2, and it's incredible. So I really do think that all developers should just let Insomniac do it. Leave Insomniac to do it. I mean, ditch the whole console exclusivity thing. You know, I'm even against that now. I think that needs to be abolished. You know, that should go the way of the dinosaur. I don't believe games should be exclusive to one console anymore. I'm very much a PlayStation guy. I will always have a PlayStation. Never going to say anything against that, but I do not believe in all this exclusivity anymore. I really do think that if one studio was to develop these superhero games like Insomniac, then they should be multi-platform. Like Spider-Man, it's now available on PC, but it's still not available on Xbox. If they make it available on Xbox, I'll be happy, because people on Xbox, you are missing out on, frankly, a beautifully fantastic game. It is perfectly done. It is wonderful. It's just chef kiss. It's one of the chef kiss moments. We're just about coming to the end of the video, so I want to hear your thoughts on Marvel's Avengers. Did you play Marvel's Avengers? Did you take one look at it and think, I know this is going to be trash, I'm not going to bother? Did you purchase it towards the end when it was practically going for 1 penny on the store before it was delisted? Have you picked it up pre-owned after it was delisted? Did you already have it? Did you get a collector's edition, the standard edition, the special edition? I personally got the special edition. Probably the best part about the game, actually, is the case. Not gonna lie, the case is pretty damn dope. It's up on a shelf with all my other steelbook cases because the artwork is gorgeous for it. But yeah, let me know your general thoughts about the game as a whole. Because if you think it's completely trash, then fair dues to you. You know, I'm not saying I agree, I'm not saying I disagree, because I genuinely enjoyed the story. And that's why I wanted to make this video. I wanted to I wanted to revisit this game after, well, I want to say all these years, but it has only actually been a few years. So I wanted to revisit this game after a few years because it's just received so much hate, so much backlash, and it ended on such a downer. You know, they didn't even release one last bit of content as a big send-off. You know, they just released Winter Soldier and were like, yeah, that's it, we're done. It just flatlined after that. So I think it's a damn shame. It's a crying shame because, as I've said, it had a ton of potential. Did this game? They could have done so much with it, and I think instead of like cutting it off completely and delisting it, they could have just made it free to play and seen what happened after that. You know, they could have been like, okay, well, we'll leave it up for a year as free to play and see what happens. You know, we'll do some updates for it, but we won't add any new characters and we'll see what happens. If the player count goes up, then we'll add some more characters. If not, then we'll delist it. Then we'll cut it off. That's how I think it should have ended. How do you guys think it should have ended? Do you think I'm completely wrong? Do you think I'm out of my mind? Do you think the game was just utter trash and should have never released in the first place? Interested to hear your thoughts. I really do hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you all for stopping by. I really do appreciate it. I hope to do some more videos like this. Revisit some older games. I did one for Cyberpunk about a year ago, and I'd been wanting to do another one ever since. I just haven't had the time. You know, I've just been busy with a bunch of personal life related stuff. I don't want to bore you with all that. But yeah, so if you want to see any more videos like this, just let me know, you know, because I'd be interested. You know, I've been thinking about doing one for Gotham Knights. Now, Gotham Knights is a more recent one, but it went the same way as Marvel's Avengers. It promised some more content with that end game stuff, and then it just died. We got, what, 2 extra bits for Gotham Knights, and then it just died. It just like, that was it. We heard nothing more. So if you want to see any more videos like this, any more of these revisit videos, just let me know, because I'd really enjoy doing them. And I don't want to end up doing them and then just finding out I'm doing them for my benefit, doing them for the sake of doing them. I really want to hear your feedback on what you think. So yeah, once again, thanks again for stopping in. I really do appreciate it. If you aren't new to the channel, please make sure you smash that like button and drop me a subscribe, because it would just be your good deed of the day. It also helps add the video to the algorithm and gives me some yummy, yummy, juicy views. You know, as you know, I don't get paid for this. I just enjoy seeing my videos get views. You know, it's satisfying. Okay, I'm a nerd. I enjoy it. So yeah, this has been Gamer Dude. Happy gaming. And I will catch you all in the next one, guys.